All right, all right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone, as we talk about becoming a person of influence. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so pleased to have you joining us today. And we want to just kick it off very quickly with a short poll. It's a pre-test, but don't worry, there's only 3 questions in this pre-test. And let's just go ahead and do it. And the poll should be launched. It should be in front of you. And just answer 3 questions. Which word best describes leadership? Right? Select one answer and then answer the question, are you a leader? Followed by the last question, what is the foundation of leadership? Please just take your time and answer these 3 questions. We have 58% of you have responded, just a few more. Thank you. We're at the 80% mark. All right, we need one more response and we will go forward. Okay, well, thank you for that chat. No, some are on the phone and can't see the poll. Thank you. So let's go ahead and end the poll and share the results to hear what you had to say. So the first question was, which word best describes leadership? 93% of you said influence, and 7% said management best describes influence. And then we asked the question, are you specifically, are you a leader? 73% of you said, yes, I'm a leader, whereas 27% said, no, I'm not sure, but no one said no. And then thirdly, what is the foundation of leadership? We find that 27% says communication is the foundation, whereas 7% said no, it's competence. And then 67% said it's trust. It's trust. So thank you for your answers. There will be a post test in about 30 or 40 minutes from now, and we will ask the same questions. So remember how you answer and see if your answers change throughout the course of our time together. So thank you, and thank you. Now, I just wonder, do any of you remember when you were young and how your parents told you, hey, don't hang around that person or don't hang around this person? Why? Because they were a negative influence. But then there were other kids that our parents said, hey, it's okay to hang out with them because we know their parents, we know their family, and they are a good influence. Well, what does that have to do with today? It reminds us that we have been influenced and have been influencing others all of our lives, whether we do it intentionally or not. We do influence people. So, hello, we are Mike and Tony, Apogee Leadership Group. Whereas you did not make a financial investment to be with us today, you did make a time investment. And how many of you know that time is more valuable than money? We can always make more money, but we cannot recover time. So we want to honor your investment in time with us today. And please know that your time is valued. So we want to make sure that by the time you leave today, We give you some nuggets that you can apply in your life right away. Right. So we want to make sure you get value from the investment you're making with us today. So again, welcome everyone. We appreciate your being here. And as we go through this training, some things you're going to say, hey, I've heard that before. I know that. And quite honestly, a lot of the things we will share, we know. But what we really want to do is get it from our head and into our hands. In other words, we don't want knowledge only, we want to put it into practice, make it applicable. So we want to ask you to when you have that temptation to say, I know that already, instead ask yourself, as we're asking ourselves, am I effectively doing it? Or how can I do it better? That's the question we want to ask. How can I put this into practice?
Thanks, Mike. Let's jump right in. So, who do you influence? Or another question, who influenced you in your life? Well, we work with the John Maxwell team, and John Maxwell defines leadership as influence, nothing more, nothing less. Now, that's contrary to what tradition says. It says that if we go to Webster, it says leadership is a position. Leadership may be a place or an office or a title. But for the most part, even the people we speak to believe that unless they have a title or a position, they're not a leader. But you see, the way John Maxwell describes it and the way we describe it is that leadership is nothing but influence, nothing more, nothing less. So I want you to think about something for a moment. Think about a person who had the greatest influence on your life. You might have to think way back. The person that's made the greatest impact on you and helped you go further, helped you go faster. I want you to think about that person and keep that person in your mind today as we go through the training. For many of you, that may be a mother. For others, it may be a father. It may even be a sister or a brother, maybe even a teacher. This person made a great impact in your life and was or is very dear to your heart. So, how many of you would actually say that that person was someone that you reported to, or someone that you've worked for, someone with the official leadership title? Who influenced you? This question is going to help us as we move along.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. So, as Tony talked about, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less, right? It's all about influence, and we want to become a persons of more influence. So here's what I want you to do. If you have a blank sheet of paper and a pen or a pencil, right? You can do electronically, great. If you don't have anything to write on, try to mentally visualize this. And want you to draw a big circle on the paper. Now, what we're drawing is a compass. And on that big circle with this compass, put a big dot in the middle and then mark the compass appropriately, with an N for north at the top and S for south at the bottom. And then west is to the left and east is to the east. And we remember that by just saying we, right? West and east. So once you have your compass drawn, make sure it's big too. And once you have it drawn, from that dot in the middle, big dot, make it a big dot, draw a line going down to the south, right? A little arrow or a line pointing south. And then draw lines going west and east. Should be a horizontal line, east and west or west and east. And then lastly, a line pointing northwardly, right, to the end, the north. And that's your compass. So why do I ask you to do this? Because when we think about leadership being influence, nothing more, nothing less, some people think about leadership is I am the manager, I am the boss, I'm the one in charge, the supervisor, and we lead down. So that arrow that's pointing to the south, that's just positional leadership. And quite honestly, positional leadership is the lowest rung of leadership. If we were to imagine a ladder from the lowest rung all the way to the top, positional leadership is the lowest rung. Why? Because people follow you because they have to. Meaning that if they want to keep getting the paycheck, and if you're their supervisor, or manager, or leader, then they follow you. Not because they want to, not because you influence them well, but they want the paycheck. And if there's another paycheck from somewhere else, they may quickly leave. So, but we need to influence downwardly. But not only that, we need to influence east to west. That's influencing our peers. Why is that important? Well, how many of us know that to get things done in a corporation, in an organization, committees, we get things done through other people. If operations can't work with sales, we have a problem. And think about this, if you have peers that don't respect you, where you have no influence, and then for whatever reason you were to get promoted, would they be apt to follow you? Would they be apt to follow me? So we need to learn how to have influence horizontally as well. And then lastly, this is a high form of leadership, is having influence going north, influencing those we report to or influencing those who may be higher in the organization. And that's very key. The playoff, the NBA is going on. So if I can just borrow that analogy, I look at what Coach Monty of the Phoenix Suns said about Chris Paul. Chris Paul's a player, but he influences horizontally a lot of his peers, but he also influenced upwardly to the north, in that the coach refers to him or defers to him at times, right? And in our organization, there are people that when the top leaders come in, they have go-to people that has influence over them. And what we want to do is help all of us to be able to influence others in a 360-degree fashion. So we need not think about influence being going down only to those that report to us, but we have to be able to influence south, east, and west, as well as north.
Thanks, Mike. And that compass that he's talking about, what you have to understand is that every single time we walk into a room, like even this Zoom room, you are somewhere inside of that compass, and you have to identify how you're going to influence those that are around you, those that are up beside you, and even below you, but especially yourself. You really do have to understand what it is you're going to do to influence yourself to be that person of influence. So it starts with you, it starts with me. Influence is not about the position. Hmm. Leadership is about people. Leadership is about people, not a position. So I just want to re-emphasize that to some that already know it and just remove it out of the minds of those that believe it. Leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. See, a lot of people believe that influence is only about that title, that position. When I get to the top, they say, then I'll be able to influence somebody. Or when I get to the top, then I'll learn how to lead. But remember, leadership is influence. And to be an influence is a choice. That's a choice you make, not a one day or a someday choice, but to be a person of positive influence. It is a today I choose. It's a daily choice. So just because someone occupies a position of leadership, it does not mean that they are leading. If you are in a position of power, but you're unable to help others catch your vision, motivate themselves to get there with you, you are just merely in a position without any real influence. You're just a person with a leadership title. Leaders don't just occupy seats and positions. They exert influence in order to affect positive change. They influence people to achieve a common goal. They influence people to deliver excellence. And they influence communities, organizations, companies in a way that makes a very positive impact. So ultimately, leaders influence by just the manner in the way they carry themselves and the way that they treat others. That's so important. True leaders, true people of influence lead by example. So you do not have to be in a formal position of leadership to actually lead. You can influence others from right where you are today. So instead of focusing on a position that you may or may not have, how about just focusing on your personal ability to influence others in a very positive and significant way? There's room for you. Leadership is not about a title or a designation or destination. It's about impact, it's about influence, and it's about inspiration. See, Stephen Covey says it best. Leadership is a choice. So if leadership is influence, then being a great influence is first and foremost your choice, and it's my choice. And John Maxwell says this about leadership. It's not about those titles that some people aspire to get. It's not about those positions that we think that we must get in order to be somewhere. It's about one life influencing another's. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Influence is not about a position.
Hmm. Wow, that's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And I think she said it all. If if influence is not about the position and it's all about the people, then by definition, because leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less, then leadership is about people as well and not about the position. See, we teach you do not manage people, you manage resources. You lead people, right? Let that sink in. We manage resources, but we lead people because it's all about the people, getting work done through people. There have been historical studies, or sociologist tells us that over a lifetime, we will influence about 10,000 people on average, about 3 or 4 people a day. What would happen if we were very intentional about our influence? What a big impact we could make, positive influence. Now, there are many different ways to lead, and I think it's appropriate that we share some of those ways.
Hmm, you're right. There are methods, actually methods for influence. And the method in which we choose will actually determine how far we can influence people, how many people we can influence, and how long we'll actually have the opportunity to influence. Let's look at some of the worst first. Method of influence by force. How many of you love and just just want to be led by someone that says there's no choice. You have no choice in the decision. They're forcing you. Well, what I believe you're going to do is just enough work to get by, just enough to get by because you're being forced. You're not given an option. Intimidation. If your leader says it's my way or the highway, well, who will willingly or excitedly follow a leader who frightens you or threatens you? People usually do one of two things. They'll either leave, or nowadays they might file something in litigation. Manipulation. How many in the room chose as their greatest influencer a person who manipulated you, who played with your emotions to get you to act or to choose? Positional. We only follow you because you're in the role. We don't trust you in the role. We don't believe you have the right motives in your heart. And we don't see you demonstrating characteristics of a sound character. As soon as possible, we're exiting left. Remember, people don't leave companies. They usually leave people, poor management, poor leaders. So the method of influence that we subscribe to is so crucial in determining how many people we will influence, how long we will be of influence, and how effective our influence will be on achieving goals.
Yes. So let's just double click on intimidation. Of course, exchange is the way we want to lead, where I win and you win, right? Everyone wins with that type of leadership as we increase our leadership capabilities and our influence. But this notion of intimidation, right? It's my way or the highway. My way or the highway. And think about those that you may have reported to. And I know no one on the call today is one of these type of leaders where you have to do it my way or hit the road, Jack, right? My way or the highway. I mentioned this coach with the Phoenix Suns. What I didn't say about him is that he was the coach for the New Orleans Hornets. And he and Chris Paul had a relationship then, and it was not good. He was a brand new coach then, 38 years old, had retired a few years ago from the NBA. They gave him a head coaching job, and he went in. He had to prove himself. He knew more than anyone else knew, and he knew the right place to call, how they ought to practice, how everyone should perform. And this is the way we're going to do it. 4 years into the job, he was gone, right? In that now with the Phoenix Sun, he's on the cusp of winning a championship. And what he said just 2 days ago, I learned from New Orleans that this whole notion of my way or the highway does not work. It does not work. Now, let's take that into the workforce. And we have people that I've reported to, it was their way or the highway. I'm like, why did you hire me? If I have to do everything your way, this intimidation didn't work on me. It probably does not work on you. And those that report to you who are leading people, it will not work on them. What we find in intimidation, two things happen. The make work activity, useless activity goes up because people are just trying to find ways to look busy. And creativity goes down. If I bring you an idea and you always reject it, nope, we don't do it that way here. And I bring you another idea and you reject that too, pretty soon I'm not going to bring any more ideas because it's your way. And you're telling me it's my way or the highway. So intimidation, let me be clear, does not work. It may work initially, but not for long. So just wanted to double click on that for a moment.
Right, Mike, because intimidation, some people won't leave the organization, they'll stick around. We all know that person, and hopefully it isn't anyone, I'm sure it isn't anyone here, that walks around with that clipboard and phone up and they're working. They're always working. They seem to be so insanely busy. I mean, they're getting it done, so it looks. They're staring at their screen. They're working. But you know what? They're doing nothing because they are disengaged. That intimidation actually led to disengagement. So they're just doing enough to get by. And all of that extra time that Mike talked about could be used for creative things, could be used for adding value to the company, is now being used working hard at looking busy on the job. In fact, I just saw a Facebook post just recently where someone said, "Hey, it's so hard looking busy today at work." And I couldn't believe the comments start coming in one after another. So I stopped and I clicked in to see what are they talking about. And do you know there were actually post after post after post of tips on how to look busy while you're at work. It was stuff like, hey, kick the cord out of the computer, pull your headset on, and just pretend to be engaged with a customer. Go ahead, take your book and your clipboard into the bathroom stall. Kick your feet up and read for a while. They were giving tip after tip because the whole team had disengaged. People are disengaging in organizations all around. They're just sitting there, but they have so much value to give. But by the intimidation that they feel that comes from some of their leaders, it makes them feel useless and of little value. So they exert little effort. So if you want more out of your people, you can't have that highway, my way or the highway attitude or mentality. If you want to engage the people, how you lead will determine how far and how long you will be able to lead.
Yes, yes, that's good advice. That's good advice. And I think the question we need to ask ourselves is, why do you want to influence, or why do you want to be a leader? Know your why. I love a book by Simon Sinek that is entitled "Start with Why." If we know why we're doing something, and we have this class called it's about the character of the leader. The invite is the acronym that we use, about, you know, integrity based and noble intention, transparent actions, et cetera, et cetera. But if we know why we're want to influence, for some of you, it's because you understand where the organization is going, and you believe in the organization, and you believe you can make a difference. So you want to be in a leadership role to help the organization accomplish its mission. You want to grow your influence so you can bring more people on board to accomplish that mission. Why do you want to influence? We each need to be able to answer that question.
Well, without trust, influence is nothing more than coercion and manipulation. Most leaders do realize that if they could just get each of their team members to contribute another 10%, it adds up to far more than they can contribute themselves. Leadership is influence. Leadership is results through others. But the reason influence is such a skill is that it's much more complicated than just saying, okay, I'm the leader, so I'm going to get more out of others. I'm going to just show up and they're just going to do what I need them to do. It's not something that you can just decide, and it's not something that you can just dictate. Without trust, you have nothing. So, how do we build this trust? We have to hold ourselves accountable, be transparent, advocate for your team. Can they really count on you? Share the success and the credit with the team. Show them you care about them. Have a fix it attitude when mistakes are made. Don't cast blame. That doesn't build trust. Address every problem openly and as quickly as you can. Builds trust. Ask yourself, am I allowing people to take on new responsibilities around me? Do I trust them? Encourage their conversations. Don't shut them down. Open communication, open feedback is everything in building trust. Listen more than you speak, and then be so spot on with acting on the feedback. Don't just say yes or have the meeting and nothing's done. Put a plan together immediately and respect their time, their opinions, their ideas. They'll come with more. Your team will grow. And unite that team. Every opportunity you have, that helps to build trust. When your team is united and working on one accord, grooving and moving together, understanding each other, getting to know one another better, getting to know you, they will work harder. And one thing we shouldn't tolerate in our groups, whether we're a leader or a part of the team, don't tolerate cliques and gossip. It kills teams and it kills the employee morale. But what is the cure? Trust. Build trust.
Yeah, trust is so important. You know, it used to be once upon a time that the big organization would eat the smaller organizations for lunch, and that's how they were had a competitive advantage. But anymore is more about the speedy organization moving faster and beyond the slower organization. And how can you be a speedy organization? Well, how quickly can you build trust with your clients and your employees? I love this quote that's on your screen. This quote was written by Stephen Covey, his son. Trust and the speed at which it is established with clients and employees is the essential ingredient for any high performance, successful organization. Stephen M. Covey in his book, The Speed of Trust. I believe it's Stephen M.R. Covey, the son. But at any rate, here's an example. There's this manufacturing organization, and they were having their lunch eaten by a Japanese organization. They were able to produce at a greater clip than their American counterpart. Or I shouldn't call them a counterpart, it was a competitor. 40% more. So the managers went to Japan and tried to understand what was going on, and they saw it was true. The Japanese competitors were doing a lot better. They were getting a lot more from their employees. So they came back to the US, and these leaders talked to the manufacturing floor, the plant, and said, hey, we need you to give more. If we don't, we're going to be out of business if you can't give more. And the employees, they heard the leaders, but here's what they thought. They say, you know what? They're trying to manipulate us. They just want to get a bigger bonus. They know we can't give that much more. And they didn't do it. And soon they did go out of business. But it was because the leaders did not earn the trust of their employees. And with the employees not trusting the leaders, they did not behave differently. As a matter of fact, they were disengaged. So when we think about that, there's really three questions that folks are asking us all the time.
And those three questions are, do you care about me? Do you really care about me? As a manager, as a leader, I need to know that you really care about me so that I can trust you. And that means that you have compassion for me as an individual, me as an employee. Can you help me? Do you have the competency to even be where you are? Do you have enough competency? Can you help me? I need to know the answer to that. Can I trust you? Does your character stand out in a positive way to the point where I want to listen to you? I want to support you. Have you broken trust with me? Do we need to have a conversation to rebuild that? We all know that there are too many people who want to be leaders only for the perks without paying the price of leadership, the cost. We see it in politics, we see it in business, we see it in churches, and unfortunately, we even see it in families. But ultimately, people will more likely follow and be loyal to the leaders who can correctly demonstrate the answers to these three questions. Do you care about me? Can you help me? Can I trust you?
Yeah, those are great questions. Those are great questions. And if we can answer those questions positively, we can increase our influence. So how do we really increase our influence? Well, it comes from adding value to others, right? If I'm adding value to you, I do have the competence. If I'm adding value to you, I'm showing that I care about you. I have compassion. If I'm adding value to you, you can trust me. My character is sound. I think about Andrew Carnegie. Many of you have heard that name. He was the wealthiest man in America for a time, led the steel industry with his company. At one point, Carnegie, or Carnegie, as some pronounce his name, had 43 millionaires working for him. 43 millionaires. And a reporter came to him and said, wow, how did you hire 43 millionaires? And Carnegie answered, I didn't hire 43 millionaires. They were not millionaires when they started working for me. They became millionaires as they worked for the company. And then he said, well, how were you able to keep 43 millionaires working for you? And he said that the short answer is he was adding value to them, right? He said, you sow into people the same way you look for gold in a gold mine. In a gold mine, when you define the gold, you got to sift through a lot of dirt and dust and everything to get to that nugget. And what he did when he hired people, he didn't look at all the dust around them. He spotted the gold and he worked with them so that that gold could shine. And they wanted to stay working with them. Even after they had made enough money to retire, they knew they were valued and they were making a difference. So we increase our influence with people when we add value to them.
Yes. And we also increase our influence when we add value to ourselves. We become more valuable to others. It can be as simple as this, just making time to reflect and review on how we are really doing. Be honest with yourselves. Take a sounding of how we really truthfully feel about what we're doing in our roles. We need to do that. We need to be comfortable doing that. We don't just want to stand in the mirror and say, oh, I'm just this great leader. We might want to be really aware of the importance of having accountability partners. That's someone that you can trust to give you your truth, and then you're not going to go and attack them, because that accountability partner really should want you to succeed. Because if you succeed, I succeed. If you fail, I fail. So don't be afraid to look carefully and find someone that will be brutally honest with you about what you're doing, because sometimes we have blind spots and we can't see what we're doing, and our intention is quite different from what we're actually doing. So, and don't be afraid of surveys. Oh, we need the surveys. We need peer reviews. We need our peers to tell us how we're doing and not go back and retaliate somewhere. Don't seek revenge on them because they've said, hey, you could be a little bit more of this or a little bit less of that. These peer reviews help you to get better and increase your influence, but it also helps your companies that you represent. So we need these accountability partners. We need surveys and peer reviews. And most importantly, we need to stand in that mirror and ask ourselves, where are my weaknesses? Where could I use assistance? We're here for that. We're constantly learning, even though we teach this content and we facilitate many discussions, we're constantly learning and evaluating ourselves. And yes, we have those heart-to-heart, face-to-face discussions about, hey, you need to do this, or we need to try this. This isn't working. Don't just keep going down the same path and getting the same results. I think they describe that as insanity, but we don't want to do that. We don't want to go down those paths. We want to be, good at hearing from other people, our good, our bad, and our ugly. We all have good, bad, and ugly. Don't be ashamed of it. You
You
know
know,
your
that's
weaknesses better than anyone else, so work on them. Leaders are influence. Leaders are a work in progress continually.
Yes, yes. And while we are trying to get those accountability partners, I think Tony hit it out the park. We need accountability partners. Now, while you're building or gaining an accountability partner, one of the things you can do immediately is reflect, right? This whole notion of reflection. Now, we're going to give you three things, three questions you should ask yourself every day, and it'll bless you. It will help you. It helps us. These three questions, I think Tony can say it best.
It's as simple as this. What went right with my choices, with my leadership? What went wrong with that decision? Truthfully. And what is it that I can do differently? Because I don't want to keep going around this same mountain over and over again. And this doesn't just apply to business or to your workplace. It applies to so many different areas in your life. This is serious because we can stop dealing with the same old problems that we're dealing with, the same ones that beat us down over and over again, just by taking a little time to reflect.
Yeah, that's so important. Don't miss this. Those three questions, please write them down. What went right? What went wrong? What can I do differently? If we ask ourselves that over and over, it would help us to improve. And as Tony said earlier, if we invest in ourselves, it will make us a better leader. And if we can leave ourselves better, others will be more apt to really follow us. I think about this notion of reflection. Someone put in the chat earlier, one of their favorite activities is working out, exercising. And then that person would tell us the muscles do not grow while they are working out, it grows while they are at rest. And it's the same thing with us learning new skills. We take the skills, we learn the skills, but the skills really develop when we are at rest, meaning we take the time to reflect upon what we have learned. So every day, like Tony said, what went right? What went wrong? What will I do differently is so important. Remember that compass that you drew? We had the north, the south, the east, and the west. Don't forget about that dot in the middle. That dot in the middle is you. That dot in the middle is me. How will I influence myself? Will I become disciplined so I can lead myself better, so that I can be more impactful with others?
Mastering your ability to positively influence others is the key to personal growth and professional growth. So, no matter what position you're in, no matter what place you find yourself in today, the biggest thing that can make an impact on where you're going is your leadership ability. And as I said, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So at the end of the day, influence is a very powerful tool, both inside and outside of your organization. So just learn to use it effectively to carry out your task and achieve your goals successfully, not using it for any other personal reasons, but rather to exercise it for mutual benefit. A win-win is the goal. Take that sincere interest in the success of others, not just in ourselves, by connecting with them, listening to them, and then understanding what is truly in their heart. Because mastering the art of influence is a very powerful way of ensuring one's own success.
Yes. Yes, and before we close, just one more slide. We want to go and take that poll, and we'll give you a chance, and we'll hang around to ask or to answer any questions that you may have. But let's take a moment now to re-ask those questions. So the polls are back up for those of you who can see it, and simply there are three. Which word best describes leadership? Are you a leader? And then, of course, the last one, what is the foundation of leadership? So we see the answers coming in. We're at the 50% mark already. All right, we'll give it a few more seconds for everyone that can respond to respond. All right, 20 more seconds and we will close it. We already have 75% of the responses in. All right, let's go ahead and share what we have. Thank you. 90% of you did answer. So let's go ahead and share the results. Well, which word best describes leadership? 82% of you said influence, right? It's not the executive, it's not management. Those are positions. Now, you may hold a position of leadership as an executive or as a manager, but as Tony shared throughout this presentation, you do not have to have a position to be a leader. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. How we influence people. And then secondly, all of you answered 100%, yes, I'm a leader. Earlier, we had only about 80 some odd percent that said I'm a leader. We had a lot of not sure's, but now we have 100% saying yes. The foundation of leadership, 88% said trust, 12% said communication. Whereas communication is important for leadership and competency is also, trust is the underlying foundation because we can communicate well, we can be very competent, even have some compassion. But if people do not trust us, they will not follow us for long. So trust is the foundation of leadership. Thank you for participating in the poll, taking that pre-test and the post-test. We really appreciate that. Let me just turn it over to Tony for some closing words, and then we'll stay on to entertain any questions you may have. Oh, if anyone's in HR, you can use this activity code. We are a SHRM recertification provider. The activity code is on your screen, 21-P9VFB. You can use that for your continuing education units. Tony?
Thanks, Mike. We've briefly touched on how to become a person of influence, just briefly, but imagine doing a deeper dive into these lessons in a group setting or individually in private coaching sessions. What would happen to you if you and your organization took a deeper dive into maximizing your impact and your influence? What would that do for your personal growth? What I would like for you to do as we close is just simply think about it. If you or your organization or someone else's organization that you know could benefit from our leadership skills, we're here for you. And we would love to work with you or your organization to help you to become the best that you can become, because that is our goal. Apogee Leadership Group LLC. We are here to help the better get better. The best to give better. We want you to be the best at what you do, because when you bring your A game to the world, the whole world is blessed. So we want you to keep in touch with us. We have some other things on the pipeline that we're sure they'll be of interest to you. Mike and I sat through this pandemic and came up with some awesome subjects that we think would help everyone. So stay tuned, because we're going to be offering different topics and discussions such as this one, just repeatedly, continually. But we're also here for your personal, group, and your organizational needs. We just thank you for spending your time with us. If there are